Welcome back to the 360 Sports Network Bowl Prediction Show, the show where we give insight and predictions for all of the 35 bowl games, and we encourage you, the fan, to challenge us and tell us why our picks are wrong. I'm James Dotson here to help analyze the post-New Year's Game bowl games. We've done the pre-New Year's Day bowls, and now we'll have a separate podcast here for post-New Year's, and then a future one just solely for the Big Five, the BCS games. And there is a great slate of non-BCS games, though, here this New Year's week. So let's jump right into the January 2nd bowls, starting with the Ticket City Bowl between Houston and Penn State. And what a way to begin New Year's Day bowls. Well, I guess technically January 2nd bowls, but you know what I mean. Motivation could be an issue for both the Cougars and the Nittany Lions down there in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. Houston was in line for a BCS bid, but when they lost their Conference USA Championship game to Southern Miss, that kind of went out the road. They've also lost their coach. He's heading to Texas A&M next year. As for Penn State, they fell one game short of the Big Ten title game, and yet they still slipped down to about the sixth best bowl game for a Big Ten team, and much of that has been due to the Jerry Sandusky scandal, of course. Even so, though, they got the best matchup possible in terms both of possibility to win the game and in terms of national exposure. Instead of going to a Gator Bowl to play a 6-6 Florida team, Penn State gets to flex their defensive muscles against interim coach Tom Bradley against the top offense in the country with Case Keenum and the Cougars. This game is going to be a battle of complete opposites. It's pretty unbelievable. The Cougars average over 50 points per game, the top in the country, while Penn State averages less than 20 per game, 111th in the country. I mean, just from that, you think Penn State's going to struggle to keep up. I mean, Case Keenum and the Cougars boast the top-rated passing offense as well, with over 450 yards per game. But they struggled pretty much very heavily against the Southern Mississippi's pass defense, which is 70th ranked in the country. Now they get to take on Penn State's Big Ten pass defense, ranked 5th in the country. And that's the key matchup to watch here. Can Devon Still cause problems for the Cougars' O-line and get to Case Keenum? Can Drew Astorino and company cover all of Keenum's weapons in the secondary? It's going to be a power offense versus a power defense, so get ready for some fireworks down in the Cotton Bowl. Thing is, on the other side of the ball, it's very unsure what Penn State's offense will consist of. Starting quarterback McGloin is still uncertain for game day after getting into a locker room scuffle with one of the wide receivers, Curtis Drake. McGloin suffered a concussion and a seizure as a result. Further, backup Rob Bolden might be in minor legal trouble because he accidentally stole a bottle of Gatorade from a dining hall. And it was even thought that maybe a redshirt freshman, Paul Jones, could see his first action for the Nittany Lions. But he did not travel with the team for academic reasons. So that leaves junior redshirt Shane McGregor, who's thrown 4 passes all year. So I expect to see a lot of Wildcat from Penn State. But, oh wait, Curtis Drake, yes, the one who got in the fight with McGloin, is one of the Wildcat quarterbacks, and he didn't travel with the team for personal reasons. So that leaves one Wildcat quarterback, Bill Belton, and maybe beyond that, Shane McGregor or Rob Bolden, either way, going to be trouble. So we'll have to see what Tom Bradley has up his sleeve. So in a league where passing is so strong, it seems like Case Keenum throwing 5 times as many touchdowns this year as the Nittany Lions as a team will be the big difference in this game. And I think that the best defense against a good offense, though, is ball control. So if the Nittany Lions can use their bigger O-line to wear out the Cougars' front 7, I think Silas Redd could be a huge, huge game for the Nittany Lions. And I look back to the 1987 Fiesta Bowl, Miami and Vinny Testaverde, the Heisman Trophy winner, taking on Penn State for the national title. Testaverde and the Dolphins, the Hurricanes were heavily favored against the Nittany Lions. Yet they only scored 10 points that game, lost 14-10. So I see a very similar setup to this game with the high-powered Cougars offense. I think the Lions control the ball on offense and force a lot of mistakes from Case Keenum. I have Penn State winning this matchup, but yeah, I'm pretty much alone in that assessment. I think in this media blitz, it's Tom Bradley's defense that's making the difference. So that's the big way to start it. Let's move on to the Outback Bowl with Michigan State versus Georgia. You gotta feel badly for the Spartans. For the first time since 1987, they finish alone on top of the Big Ten in the standings. And wouldn't you know, it's the first year that there's a conference championship game. And in the rematch, a controversial running into the kicker call takes away a huge punt return that had the game going into overtime at worst for Michigan State. Instead, it's 2 kneels, and the Badgers head to Pasadena. And by computer rankings, which make no sense, they drop below a team that they beat, had a tougher schedule than they had, at least by the eye test I think they do, and even had a better record than them in their conference. Oh well, can't change all that, but I still think the Spartans will be motivated big time in this matchup as a result of all the chaos that's ensued since that last minute in Indianapolis. Georgia is favored in this game, though, and they're picked by almost everybody nationwide, it seems. Why is that? It's because they're SEC. I look at their schedule, though. They had terrible losses, terrible performances against Boise State and South Carolina to start the year. And really, they were no competition for LSU in the SEC title game. And minus a couple of non-conference blowout games, Georgia was in close games all year against very mediocre teams. They blew out Auburn, who's a 7-5 team, so that doesn't mean much to me. I don't even know how they're ranked, honestly. Michigan State played consistently well all year and against good teams, including winning against Wisconsin, when they probably should have won a second time against them. Both of these teams, both Michigan State and Georgia, are ranked in the top 5 in defense. And that's with Michigan State playing Wisconsin twice, Georgia playing nobody. Numbers never lie. And because of that, I think the ability for both teams to provide a good mix of run and pass is the key to victory. Michigan State did rank dead last in rushing yards in the Big Ten, but that's because they're about the only team in the Big Ten to not have a running quarterback. And their two-back tandem of Le'Veon Bell and Edwin Baker have more touchdowns than Georgia's main back, Isaiah Crowell. And receivers B.J. Cunningham and Keyshawn Martin both have more yards than Georgia's top receiver. Again, numbers never lie, and because of that, I think these senior-laden Spartans, Kirk Cousins, B.J. Cunningham, Keith Nichol, I think they win because of their desire to play and their ability to play well. I see a Spartan team's on the rise and a Bulldog team coming off their worst performance of the year. Everybody assumes the SEC is bigger and better than the Big Ten. I'm not with them. I'm going with the Spartans in this one. Capital One Bowl, Nebraska versus South Carolina. The second Big Ten SEC matchup. The Gamecocks are trying to defeat Nebraska for the first time in their program's history or their coach's history. The one matchup I want to look at in this one is the Gamecocks' number 4 defense, Melvin Ingram, Le'Veon Clowney, taking on the dual quarterback running back tandem of Taylor Martinez and Rex Burkhead. Because either one of them can take the snap, either one of them can run the ball, either one of them can throw a pass. That's a tough backfield to handle. South Carolina's backfield is in a little bit of trouble without Marcus Lattimore, and that makes it for a tough day. But their quarterback, Connor Shaw, since he's come into the starting lineup, he's been very reliable, including a 4-touchdown performance in their season finale against Clemson. Meanwhile, Nebraska has a young team, an offense that has struggled down the stretch, especially Martinez, who hasn't scored a touchdown on the ground since Week 5 or Week 6 of the season. And I think that's going to be the main difference. It's going to be trouble for Martinez to get the offense rolling. And I'm going to go with South Carolina in this game, only because of their performance here down the stretch. They've won big games in recent memory, especially Clemson, and Nebraska has lost big games to Northwestern and Michigan by 28 points, actually, in their last 4 games. All momentum is with the old ball coach. Next, the Urban Meyer Bowl, the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl between Ohio State and Florida. The Urban Legends Bowl, many are even calling it. Whatever you want to call it, this game is only interesting because of Urban Meyer, former Gators coach, future Buckeyes coach. Now, in terms of the actual game, it's 2 pathetically terrible 6-6 teams only playing for bragging rights over a coach. Who cares? Both teams are ranked out of the top 100 in terms of total yards, out of the top 75 in terms of points scored. Ohio State's dual threat Braxton Miller will lead their offense on the ground mostly, controlling the ball and the clock. And I'm thinking that will be the difference. Miller and Boom Herron on the ground against a Gator run defense that can be suspect at times. And Brantley down there for Florida really hasn't done much to impress me for them. But this is a true pick'em game because really either team can make the one big play to make the difference. Oh, one last thought on this game. The Gator Bowl for the second straight year features 2 teams with pretty terrible records for a New Year's State Bowl. Last year it was Florida and Penn State. They were both 7-5. This year Florida and Ohio State both 6-6. Next year it'll probably be 2 5-7 teams. We'll say Florida again for old time's sake and Iowa. The bottom of the Big Ten and the bottom of the SEC playing off in the toilet bowl. I mean, come on, people. Let's get real bowl games here. Enough with that rant, though. Let's move on to the AT&T Cotton Bowl at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. Kansas State versus Arkansas. This probably will be the most non-exciting, non-BCS game of the year. Number 8 Wildcats, number 6 Razorbacks. The big story here is a quarterback who has been so unknown this year. It is truly disappointing. His name is Colin, don't call me Calvin, Klein. He threw for 1,700 yards and 12 touchdowns this year, but even more impressive on the ground, rushing for just under 1,100 yards and 26 touchdowns. That's second most in the FBS behind Wisconsin's Monty Ball. Remember this guy's names in the Heisman talks next season. Arkansas has 2 losses this year, 2 blowout losses to the 2 teams in the national title game. So what does that mean? That they were so good that they beat all their other opponents? Or that they haven't played anybody else? Well, they did get gift-wrapped a win against number 14 Texas A&M earlier in the year. They destroyed number 15 Auburn, but you know how I feel about Auburn being ranked anywhere near the top 25. And they beat number 9 South Carolina by 2 touchdowns. So, you make the call there, I guess. Junior quarterback Tyler Wilson did throw for 3,400 yards and 22 touchdowns this season, and half of those going to senior wideout Jarius Wright. All in all, I think it's safe to say that Jerry Jones's huge scoreboard out there will be lighting up left and right in Dallas. And just because Arkansas is the SEC does not mean that they're going to win, even though that does mean obviously they have to be the favorites in the matchup. I think Colin Klein is better than any quarterback the Razorbacks have seen this year. Advantage Wildcats. Again, I'm alone in this pick, though. Let's move on to the last couple of games. We got the BBVA Cuppas Bowl between Southern Methodist and Pitt. Pitt has had a very rough month here with the departure of their coach Todd Graham, but things are beginning to look up now with the hiring of a man who actually wants to coach for the Panthers. Ironically enough, though, it was Mustangs coach June Jones who was thought to be heading to Arizona State to coach the Sun Devils. But instead, it's Todd Graham leaving and heading to the desert, and Jones heading with his team to the Compass Bowl. Both of these teams, both Pitt and SMU, have struggled down the stretch and have had motivation issues in this bowl game as a result. The main worry in this game is the Mustangs' 23rd ranked pass offense against a pretty suspect Panther pass defense at times. But like in all these games featuring a power conference versus a mid-major conference, the biggest part of the game will be the biggest men on the field. The battle in the trenches will be huge and provide huge holes for the Panther backs. Probably Zach Brown starting for the Panthers. He should be back for the bowl game. The lack of Ray Graham is not going to help Pitt, but we'll see him back next year, so that'll be nice. Southern Methodist also has trouble without their leading rusher, Zach Line, as well, meaning solid rushing for them will be difficult to come by, making him one-dimensional. So because of the trenches battle, and because I think the Panthers team is very motivated, wanting to show Todd Graham what he's left behind, I think I'm going to put the Panthers winning their 3rd straight bowl game. The only problem is they need to have Tino Sunseri have a game with no turnovers. Otherwise, it could be a rough finish down there in the Compass Bowl. And our last one, the GoDaddy.com Bowl between Arkansas State and Northern Illinois. Who? Honestly, you might not know who they are, but you should. These are probably 2 of the most streaky teams right now, the teams that are playing the best ball right now. They're both high scoring as well, taking a game right before the national title game. They might be stealing the spotlight here. Arkansas State has won 8 straight, thanks to Ryan Applin's arm and legs. Northern Illinois has won 7 straight, behind their dual threat of Chandler Harnish. Both quarterbacks lead their teams not only in passing, but in rushing yards as well. Each team averaging over 32 points per game. You're probably not going to see 32 combined points the next day, so this game is going to be more exciting in my mind. I think Northern Illinois is a little more balanced in their offense. It still all goes through Harnish, but the Huskies balance the run and the pass a bit more than the Red Wolves of Arkansas State. The Huskies average 250 yards in the air per game, and 252 on the ground. Because of that balance, I put Northern Illinois to win in this truly toss-up game, but in my mind, the more exciting game than the national title game the next day. Well, that about wraps everything up here for our New Year's, or our post-New Year's Bowl Games prediction show. And again, if you don't agree with our picks, or you think we're crazy, speak up and be heard. Leave us a comment, send us a tweet, send us an email, tell us why we're wrong. And stay tuned for our BCS Games podcast here in the next couple of days. As always, you can keep up to date with us on our website, www.360sportsnetwork.com, or on Twitter following us at 3S Network. Everybody have a safe and happy New Year, and enjoy the bowl games.